our next speaker. Alexander is almost ready. He's getting a mic on now, I think. Alexander Lopera is a psychologist and researcher from Neurons Incorporated, a company that uses the latest tools and insights from neuroscience to measure, understand, and affect human decision-making. And Alexander met a company called Badoink VR last year on CopenX, and they do VR porn. And they actually started doing some research together on how VR compared to 2D screen, how it affects the way you understand and use, I guess, pornography. Welcome, Alexander.
Hello. Hi. Hey, so thank you for being here and being interested about this topic. I'm, as she said, Alex Lopera. So this talk is going to be about neuroscience and how we study VR technologies using neuroscience tools and methods. So let's see. First of all, a little bit of background on the company. Oh, it looks a bit stretched, but it's okay. So Neurons Inc is a market research consultancy. We apply new methods to do market research. And the CEO is Dr. Thomas Ramsøy. He's former director of the Center for Decision Neuroscience in the Copenhagen Business School. And he's kind of a leading figure, he's a leading scientist in the field. Back when I was in Spain, I knew about him and I was very interested about his topics, and he developed one of the first scales about consciousness and how you can be aware of stimuli if you see them or not. So he was very interested, and then we met. The day after, I called him, I said, okay, I'm taking a plane to Copenhagen to see you. And 2 weeks later, I was working with him, testing brains to many things. So the way we do it is like that. We have a team, this guy's Kristen over there, and we have a team of people dressing in black, very Danish style. And they travel around the world to many locations, and they test people while using technology, or while looking at advertisement, or while testing products, or even looking at concepts, or thinking about concepts that don't exist yet, like the future of housing, or the future of driverless cars, or something. So yeah, we are based here in Copenhagen, well, in a town called Holbæk, and we do research all over the world. And with just to name a few, there's many brands that are using our services, and they are getting more interested in neuroscience. For example, we do a lot of research with Facebook or with Lowe's, which is kind of a Bauhaus from United States. And the reason why they do, they start getting interested in these topics is because they don't trust the consumer anymore. You know, the whole the traditional market research is based on the idea that because you use a product, I'm going to ask you, did you like it or not? And you are going to tell the truth as a consumer. But you know, a lot of times we're going to say yes or no, and that's not really going to tell the truth. So for example, when you try VR for the first time, oh, it's very exciting, everybody likes it. You ask the people, yeah, for sure, I will buy it tomorrow, and then it doesn't happen. So what is exactly going on inside of the brains, and what are the emotional triggers of that purchase behavior or of that usage behavior that we want to foster? And that's why companies are interested. So we are not really rational, and this is an example of that we are not rational. It's a very interesting research that I read short ago, and it was about wine. So they took this wine store, and they started playing French music. And when they started playing French music, magically French wine sales increased. And when they started playing German music instead, they started selling more German wine. And this, I mean, it was an expected result, but I almost fell off my chair when I read it. It was like, what? This would be like if you play electronic music in some store and then you sell more VR or something. To me, it was crazy, the whole idea. So that meant to me that we pick up cues in the environment that we are not completely aware of. This is the basis of subliminal advertising. And we are not aware of it, but yet it affects the way we behave and the way we buy things. And I don't know if it's going to work, the video, but this really, really proves my point. This is going to be some people trying the new iPhone. It's a bit of an old video. It's the iPhone 7, but they did it again with the iPhone X. So let's see if it works.
As you learned exclusively on this show, Apple unveiled their new iPhone 7 yesterday. It's not coming out until September 16th, but most people don't know that. Most people hear about the announcement and they assume they can just get it right away. So we decided to take advantage of that and of the Apple mania in general. We went out on the street, we asked iPhone users if they wanted to try the new iPhone, the iPhone 7. And when we took their current phone, we cleaned it, we put it in a different case, and we handed the phone right back to them. Told them it was the new one. Do you think we found anyone who believed that? Well, let's find out with this first look at the iPhone 7.
We've gotten some prototypes of the 7, and what the great thing about the 7 is it's an instant data transfer, so you can transfer a lot of your settings from your current phone to the 7 and try it out instantly as if it was your own phone.
Oh, cool.
Do you want to take a spin?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Would you mind giving Patrick your old phone?
Do you need my passcode? Okay.
It will automatically do it. And you said you've had one since the 3?
Oh yeah, probably since I'd say 2011 or 2010, whenever that one came out.
Now this new one is water resistant, right?
Yes.
Now have you ever had anything where you've gotten water on any of your iPhones?
Yes.
What happened?
Dropped it in the toilet.
Dropped it in the toilet?
Yeah.
And did you do the rice thing?
Yes, I did.
Did
And
it work?
didn't work. No.
Okay. Oh, and we have the new iPhone with all the settings in
Okay.
it.
Wait, so this is like all my stuff on it?
This is all your stuff on the new one.
Cool. That's
And
great.
how does it feel?
Thinner,
Thinner?
a little bit.
Does it feel lighter as well?
Yeah, actually, than my 6 Plus, yes.
And you could test to see if all your info has transferred. Has it transferred?
Yeah, I already got a text message from a friend of mine, so yeah.
Oh my God.
Let's see.
So can you just sort of talk to us about the features of the phone? How does it feel? How does it look?
It's a lot smoother. I like it feels lighter.
Feels
than
lighter?
the other one, yeah.
So what do you think in terms?
All right, you get the point. So we cannot trust what people say alone. I mean, I'm not saying we shouldn't use surveys at all. We still need to use the traditional methods, but combining them with new methods and understanding how their deep emotion works is going to give us a lot more insights. And actually, a lot of our clients really appreciate when we bring a report and they say, I've never seen such a result like this, telling so much. So that's the thing. We construct a reality based on the cues that are around there, on what we see. Our brain automatically, without asking us for permission, is constructing the reality. I don't know if, yeah, you can still see there's some sort of triangle here. And this is kind of the basis of the whole VR thing, right? When you're putting on a VR and you feel you're in a different environment, you're just fooling your brain. You're just telling your brain that you're in a different place. That's why people, sometimes we see videos of people running into a wall with a VR headset or something because they really feel that they are there. So that's the exciting thing about VR, that it creates more engagement just because it's more efficient at fooling your brain. Up until now, it was maybe television or cinema, the ultimate stimulus to make you feel like this. And now with VR, it's like a new generation. And yeah, these are yet more examples. These are actually, I wanted to show this because this is not new stuff. This has long been known in psychology. This is a very old book, and they are talking about the rules of perception. So how when we see lines that are closer together, we see 3 sets of 2 lines in number 4, for example. Or in number 6, we cannot help but seeing groups of squares and groups of triangles. But they are at the same distance. They are not. We are grouping them automatically. Okay. Also, the number 12 is very curious. So you're kind of assuming that there's a line underneath, and it's some sort of mountains or something. It could be maybe some buildings, but there's not a line. Even if I'm in a VR environment and and I have a green square here and a green square here and a gray path in the middle, I will assume that's a road automatically, you know. But that's just a set of squares and lines, and that is telling my brain a different story. Okay, this is the equipment that we normally use to understand these emotional and cognitive subliminal responses. So there is, right there, there's a EEG brain scan that is measuring tiny electrical activities of the communication between the neurons, and based on the location and some parameters, we can calculate and we can correlate that with certain patterns. Let's say if there's this pattern in activity, then you correlate it in scientific research with more motivation or with more intention to buy something, and then we use that to measure it on actual consumers. And second, we use also eye tracking glasses. There's a camera in front pointing at what's the field of view that the person is looking at, and we are measuring the pupils dilation and the pupils where they are looking. So we can know if people see things, if people don't see things, what are they missing, so to speak. So if they are, you know, how much attention is the brand getting when you look at a certain ad or something. And that combines into 4 main metrics. We use other metrics, but these are the ones we are more familiar with, and I'm going to briefly explain them because we're going to show some results later on about this. So first of all, there is arousal. Let's start randomly. So arousal is kind of the intensity of the emotion, is the engagement of the experience that I'm feeling, okay? But an emotion can be very intense, but can be good or can be bad. So if I'm watching a horror movie, I'm going to be intensely aroused, but in a bad way. If I'm watching a porn movie, I'm going to be aroused in a approaching way, in a positive way. So that's what motivation is going to tell us. Motivation talks about the balance of the emotion. Tells a positive motivation, it's related to approach behaviors, or when I want to kind of, when you see the sneakers in the supermarket and you just grab it, you have a peak of motivation right before that. And a negative motivation would be when you want to avoid the things, when you're not feeling appealed by it, or when you just want to separate from it. Then we have cognitive load. Cognitive load is kind of the amount of information that our working memory is processing at any time. So it tells about how mentally stressed the person is. If we give a lot of complex stimuli and movement and a lot of colors and contrast, the cognitive load will raise, and it can raise up to stressing levels. All the scores you will see, they range from 1 to 0, and we typically say that a cognitive load beyond 0.75, it's kind of stressing levels. And finally, we have visual attention, and that's derived from the eye tracking, and it's basically telling us where's people paying attention to and what are they missing. Okay, so using this technology, or these methods, we have tested over and over virtual and augmented reality technologies. So one of our main partners in this is Lowe's. It's kind of a Bauhaus from United States, I tell already. And they are very innovative. They have this department that is called Lowe's Innovation Labs, and there they do from 3D printing to having a VR room where you can build your house inside the store, also playing with Google Tango or with the HoloLens to place items in a kitchen or something like that. So we have developed, or we are under development of, to the reach of my knowledge, one of the biggest databases of neurometrics to VR and AR technologies. So I want to show a little example talking about Lowe's. This is a published article that is testing how people react when they are being guided around the store by a robot. So it's about human-robot interaction and about how the robot can avoid this kind of valley that is called the Uncanny Valley. Uncanny Valley, for those who don't know, is kind of this effect when some human-like image, but that is fake, gets too human-like. It creates this feeling of of rejection. It's like, oh, this is a, you know, when Siri gets too close to you and she starts telling you personal stuff, you kind of feel a bit awkward with her. So that's the kind of thing. Well, or with him, it can also be a man. So let's, I mean, this is just a small video of how, you know, the person is following the robot around the store.
No, that's it.
I can see that you are considering a project on bedroom remodeling. Is there anything I can help you with?
I don't know if you can hear it.
Not today.
Okay. Yeah, the robot is kind of asking her, hey, would you like me to help you with your project in your home and stuff? And she's like, no, not really
that's
today.
it.
Right? So when the robot was making kind of jokes, or when the robot was getting too close, too personal to the people, we saw a decrease in motivation response.
Not
They
today.
didn't like it. How can I stop this? All right, good. So then we wanted to compare that. I was curious about that, and I wanted to compare that. Okay, how would it be if instead of a robot, you've been following a very nice, handsome guy or something? And this is what happened. There you go. Yeah, the person was obviously not aware that we knew where she was looking at. This was a woman. It's just a picture, it's just a funny picture, it's not a video, but you get the idea, right? She would never tell us what she preferred, if the robot or the man, but well, I leave it up to you. Okay, this is some research we did with Facebook as well. It's one of the main results that I want to share with you today, where we had people meeting in VR, and we had people meeting for the first time as well in real life, and also in a live chat. So let's see the video, because it's going to explain it much better than me.
Look around, get used to the environment here.
This is strange.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Whoa. Weird.
This is kind of trippy.
I know, like, there's a whole virtual body over there.
Whose hand is that? Oh, it's mine. Oh, it's my virtual hands.
Virtual reality is technology that lets you be any place, anywhere, anytime.
That sense of presence that you can get from being in virtual reality is unlike any other kind of technology that we've seen to date.
Facebook's all about understanding how people connect, and we want to know how changing technology is going to affect the way that people communicate with each other. And in this particular experiment, what it's like to meet somebody new.
Hello, I'm Justin.
Hey, Justin. I'm Jeff.
We know what it's like to sit across from one another and speak to somebody. What does that feel like when you're in a virtual environment? Are you going to be open?
I was just talking about cars. You got deep.
Right? And they did indeed got deep, and they got very engaged with the experience, sometimes even beyond meeting in person. So we wanted to understand what were the effects of this. First of all, we wanted to compare if meeting in VR was more stressing or not for the participants than just meeting in real life. So we took the cognitive load score, and we measured in 3 groups. First, we had people meeting in person, then we have people meeting in VR, and also we had people meeting in a video chat. So as you can see here, the people meeting in person and meeting in VR had similar values of cognitive load, suggesting that none of the experiences was more stressing or more cognitively loading than the other. But in video chat, if you have been to a conference call with some client or something, you can easily understand me. You know, there's lagging, the microphone mutes or whatever. You're writing and you're listening at things at the same time. So the technology is significantly more stressing than just being at ease in a VR environment or in a real environment. Secondly, we measured engagement as well. And this is very related to the arousal metric that I showed before. So this is how intense the emotional experience was. And in the beginning, we didn't find many differences. But then we took a personality test of the people, and we compared introverts with extroverts. So what you see here is that introverts, they felt more engaged and more emotionally aroused in the VR environment, while extroverts preferred to meet in in real life. So this kind of shows the potential of testing the brain in virtual reality environments, because you can easily target what is your, what is your intention, what is the market that you want to target, and also what is the people that is going to be that is going to accept the product in a better way. Think about think about the first time you tried VR and this kind of, you fell in love with it and this intense emotional experience that you felt, right? Okay, you can also use the brain scan to flag potentially stressing experiences with the cognitive load. So what we see here, this is some research we did with Ericsson, and it's not about driving. It's actually about when you're trying to load some content in your phone and the video is not loading, the video is buffering. How many seconds does it take until you get stressed and you just give up and you lose focus and you say, okay, I don't really want to see this video anymore. So there were country differences. Indonesia had much higher resistance. They could wait for much longer than Germany, for example. But what we see here is that around the 4 seconds, people experience a peak in cognitive load, and by then 39% of people lost focus. And by the second peak, around 6-7 seconds, 42% of people lost focus already and they just gave up. And also we can see that in general, the cognitive load for mobile phones, I mean, these little things that we have all the time in our pockets are very stressing for our brains. So careful with that. And the reason why there's a guy driving here is that we compared the results of experiencing delays on your phone, and the cognitive load values were comparable to driving in heavy traffic in Jakarta. And also we compared it to benchmark while looking at horror movies. So it can be very stressing when the content is not loading, right? Another research that we did just this year with Ericsson, we tried to compare PC gaming with VR gaming and at different stages of lagging. I'm sorry I cannot show many results of this research because they are still private until Ericsson publishes the report. But it was very interesting to see how forgiving people were to VR technologies. Even if they were experiencing lagging, their brains were more stressed, but what they were saying is that it was fine, that they very much enjoyed the experience. Think about the early days of internet when the content was taking ages to load, and we were very forgiving to that technology. And right now, when there's a 3-second delay in our mobile phones, we already get stressed like driving in Jakarta traffic. So with new technologies, rationally, we are more forgiving, but unconsciously, we might not be. Okay, now it starts getting a little bit interesting. This is already Badoing VR results. And here we are also comparing PC with VR. This is cognitive load values. And what you can see is that the curve for VR is a little bit flattened out because of the slide. But the curve for VR is higher at start and at finish than the curve for PC. So that is telling us that VR was more cognitively loading for these participants. There's a small line, a horizontal line, which is at 0.75. And beyond that line, we would assume that it's a stressing experience. So the experience overall didn't reach stressing levels, but it was still higher for VR. Below you have icons with what we actually did in the experiment. I have to say this is an experiment. It's kind of a pilot experiment where we only had 5 participants. We normally use sample sizes of about 30 participants because it's a sample size that is widely used in scientific research, and it also ensures that we minimize error and we will get kind of strong statistical significance. But in this case, it was a pilot. We were just testing out the technology. 5 participants who first went through setup and calibration of the brain scan. Then they saw porn on a flat screen. Then I needed to distract them before, between both exposures. I didn't want them to show porn and then more porn. So I actually had them juggle, learn how to juggle, while I was asking them what they had for breakfast, and I was throwing balls at them. Like it was not relaxing for them, but definitely got them distracted from what they were watching before. And then they saw VR porn video. Both videos were 8 minutes, and they were featuring the same porn actress. I think she was called, I can't remember her name. Megan Rain. And then we recorded an interview to ask them what was about. So I'm going to show you some results right now, but I need to warn you, it's going to be a bit sensitive content. So if there's anyone sensitive in the audience, or if there is underage people, please let me know so I can skip this part. So it's fine? Fine. So let's see. This is some video plots. So this is showing brain responses in real time while people are watching porn. And there's a camera in front of the screen because, they are moving around. There's a 360 experience, so we needed to know where they were looking at. And what we see here is that in 3 cases, these are 3 different participants, all of them experienced a peak in the red line, which is arousal, so they were more engaged for some reason. And the reason is that they were playing around with these head movements. So at the moment that this happened, the participant was either looking up or looking to the side. So when they felt this 3-dimensional experience, all of a sudden, the emotional intensity increased. They felt more engaged. Even the participant in the middle, he also had a peak in motivation. So let's see. All right, this is a small video representing what I just said. So let's see if it can play. You will see, so the red line is going to be arousal, is the emotional intensity, and you will see that it peaks exactly when he moves his head. He liked it. After that, we see strong peak in motivation. I bet that's related to what she's saying right now. I don't know what she's saying right now, but I bet it's related to what she just said. Okay, let's go to another finding. Here, the actress is eating a lollipop, obviously, and we see in all 3 cases that there's another peak in arousal. What happened here, I was very surprised when I saw this. So all participants, exactly at the moment where the actress touched her hair, all of them experienced a peak in arousal. I couldn't explain this. I don't really know what's happening. But for some reason, we are kind of engaging or feeling empathy of some sort to the actress, and this generates this kind of engagement in the participants. And you can see that the peaks are very similar. They happen kind of all at the same time. And then thirdly, the lollipop exploded. So this is kind of at the end of the video. I didn't expect it to be so hard to present porn results in front of an audience. So at the end of the video, when the male orgasm happens, it was incredible to see that all the participants were having a very consistent motivation peak. It was so consistent that I considered using it as a benchmark for motivation, to say, okay, if you're really, really into something, this is the kind of motivation you want to experience. Right, so that was it for porn for today. What we're doing then is trying to combine these VR technologies with neuroscience research and with market research. So it's not only about testing VR, it's about testing the applications of VR, Think about, you're in some booth selling your VR experience, and then there comes this investor, and he's thinking about and maybe investing in some VR technology. You show him the VR technology. You want to know if he's going to feel stressed about it, or if he's going to feel more engaged about it, or what's really going to happen. Because no matter what, he's going to tell you, oh yeah, I really like it, for sure, we should do something. So you cannot really trust that. But if you already know from beforehand that your experience can have this application, you can be one step ahead, right? That's the interest of the companies. So what is the future? What are we looking at, or what are we looking forward in the future? We are building a supermarket in virtual reality where we want consumers to go in there, and we want to test the emotional responses. This can be used as a kind of a sandbox that you can play with things. You can replace them. You can improve the lighting. You can change it. You can move things around before you do it in real life, and you can see how it happens inside of the brain. So this can accelerate much the retail process, the retail innovation process. If you want to test if this or that product perform better in the store, you have to place one product, then place the other product, and test both. This can take months. Whereas in virtual reality, you take 30 participants, you take a brain scan and a VR experience, and you can have results you can do the test in 1 week and then have results 1 month after. There's a pointer. We're also building VR apartments, and the idea here is to influence architecture, how we perceive space, and how does it really make us feel. When it's about space and design, there's a lot of things that make us feel good, and we don't know why it makes us feel good. And I'm not saying that the VR apartment is going to be the same than experiencing the real apartment. I mean, you go into the apartment, you experience the breeze of the sea, or the traffic, or the sound. It has a more involving experience, but still you can get an idea, at least visually, of what's happening. And we're also testing or making islands. This is more for therapeutical purposes. This is to bring people there and see to what extent they can meditate, they can relax, or they can reduce anxiety by being in a virtual reality experience. So it's not only about porn. And that was it. I wanted to finish with this quote. You guys are the ones making the VR content and the VR technologies. I am the one testing them. I am not a VR expert. But years ago, this guy said that virtual reality is an emerging field of applied science. We are not just playing around with this. We want this to work, and we want this to be serious. So, whatever you do, measure it and make sure that it's not just hype. You need to really understand what's going on. Thank you very much.